Okay, so it is late. What is it? 3 o'clock in the morning. But I'm up. That's what I do. Because eventually I will be able to be off, right? So the studio has to open today, and also on Tuesday, but it's altered hours. Today is basically little short stuff that we have to do, and then we take everything to the kiln and fire it up. And then obviously on Tuesday, folks are going to be able to pick up so they can have it in time for Christmas. And that's why we are rushing right now and all of that. But you don't care about that. That's not why you're here to watch the video. This video is in response to the video I did that talked about the soul of Seattle, right? It was a fairly popular video, and I kind of figured that it would be because Seattle is a hot topic, right? And there are many reasons why it's a hot topic. One, it's a hot market for people to move to. And for two, there are people who just simply hate Seattle. There's people who hate California. There are people who hate Mississippi. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you do, they're never going to change their mind. And those aren't the people that necessarily this channel is for. This channel is not for people who hate the area, and they may hate it for many different reasons. The weather could be part of it, the people that are here could be part of it, it could be the politics behind this area or in this area. It could be so many different things that people don't like, and that's fine. Nobody really cares about that, right? You're entitled to your opinions, your beliefs, your feelings, and all of that. That's totally cool. I did have, with that said, comments that are just rude and nasty and stupid. I don't know about other YouTubers. They may let that stuff slide. I don't. I am someone who will instantly delete a comment if it's something that's stupid. If it's constructive, that's fine. If it's in disagreement and it's respectful, that's fine. But if it's going to be something that's completely buffoonery, then it's not going to see the light of day. A lot of times the thing will sit and block it, but for two, if it doesn't and it gets past that, I'm going to delete it and not even discuss it because there's no point in that. Now, with that said, there is a time for people to have good discourse back and forth, and people will talk about Seattle and the things that they don't like. There are just some people who really try to make it work. It didn't work. There are some people who talk about how they grew up here and there was a time when Seattle was a certain way and now it's completely different. And I get what they're saying because there are people here in Tacoma who are saying, please do not bring more Amazon type businesses here. Please, no more people from Seattle here because we want to keep Tacoma the way that it is. So people in Tacoma have this motto of keep Tacoma fierce because there has always been this negative view of Tacoma from some of the people in Seattle, right? So it is kind of saying, look, we don't want people to come here because we don't want the crowded issues and all the other things that Seattle is going through, right? So I get it, right? So I don't mind a good conversation back and forth, and we're not all going to agree. There are some people who said, you're taking such a light-handed approach towards Seattle and its problems. I'm not someone who sits here and wallows in misery and say, things are just so bad, I don't know what to do. And that's just not me. That's never been me. It's never going to be me. I don't run from things either, so I'm not going to run from something just because things are challenging. Now, I'm not saying I volunteer and walk into danger, but I'm not going to just run from a whole area because I feel like one particular segment is challenging. If you go to the rest of Seattle, you're not going to see what you see in downtown. Those are facts. So you have some people who want you to believe falsehoods, just like with Tacoma. And I tell people, look, I did a video driving around Tacoma, and I made sure that I drove around at night because people will say, well, you drove around during the day. So I drove around on the weekend, on a Friday night and a Saturday night, just to make sure after midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, in the areas that people will tell you are fright nights, and I didn't see anybody. I mean, there was a few people that you would see, but you literally, in Tacoma at least, and it's still that way, You can probably, and someone that's on our Discord, by the way, join our Discord, it's down in the description box below, even said you could lay down in the middle of the street for probably 30-40 minutes and nobody would come by because it's just dead. Like there's just no one that's really out. That's not to say there's not issues and crime and things like that here, because it does indeed happen. Of course, you're in a city, but it's not the way that people want you to really and truly believe, right? We've had some issues this year in Tacoma in terms of murders and stuff. Unfortunately, I hate it. I hate that. But that's not cause for people to say, well, I'm going to abandon that place because I'm scared of it. Silly. You know, someone had made a comment. I thought they said that they live in the Tri-Cities area. And they were talking about they moved away from Seattle and they moved someplace else. Let me tell you, this is a country boy. I lived in the country. I lived in a town of 740 people. I think I said it in that video. There was crime there. We're talking country. And no stoplight. I remember seeing a high-speed chase go right past my house. And the cop pulled the guy over and had his gun pointed to him, right? And this guy was laughing because he thought it was funny. There's crime that happens everywhere, for sure. And the more people you have, the more crime you're going to get. The more wealth that's around a certain area, sometimes you get a little bit more crime too. I did a thing talking about Beverly Hills, Orange County, different things. Those places, don't be fooled, there is pretty high crime rate. There are other cities that people love that have a high crime rate. You know, Nashville, Tennessee is no darling. And so I wanted to discuss that because someone was talking about the Tri-Cities, and Tri-Cities had an issue with trying to figure out how to solve their gang issue. Tri-Cities, Washington. Now, this is more of a Republican area, but they had not the whole Republican-Democrat thing, because, again, I think it's just stupid. People stand on a tribalistic thing, and it's basically like gangs, right? I think it's just silly. But, I mean, since you want to talk about Democrats, let's talk about Republicans. It's a Republican area, and they had an issue with gangs. It's a social thing. It's a social issue. And they had a problem with trying to find a way to finance a way to solve that issue a few years ago. They had a hard time coming up with the money to do that. So the problem is that there's many social ills regardless of where it is. Democrat, Republican, small town, big city, it doesn't matter. When you look at Seattle as a whole, for the city size that it is, 707,000 people, it has by far less crime than places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, for example. And this is not a slam against Albuquerque, but it's just that's a city that I can come up with. A city in similar size, city-wise, would be Indianapolis. Has less crime than Indianapolis, by far. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, right? We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I do want to address this one person on the channel that left a comment. And they said that how bad is traffic on Highway 18? Now, Highway 18 is known as State Route 18. And it basically connects down here close to Federal Way. It's in King County, and it goes all the way up to north, right? Excuse me. So it goes through, Auburn and different places like that. It goes all the way up to North Bend and Snoqualmie. And so they wanted to know how busy was it. And that is going to depend on the area that you're at and the time of day. So in the middle of all that, probably not so busy. But when you're down by Federal Way and Kent and Auburn and all that general area, pretty busy. As you get by Snoqualmie, it's going to be kind of busy, right? So it just depends on what direction you're going, the time of day. It's going to depend, but it's not super, super insane like I-5, but it can be. So to answer that question, because he has that question and then another question all on the same video. Well, it's on a different video. He's asking this on what are some of the things that Tacoma is lacking, and then on the ones that the Fight for the Soul of Seattle. He said he's been watching the videos, my videos for about a year now. This film made me even more turned off about the idea of moving up to the Seattle area. I'm really hoping the surrounding areas make it worth it. If so, I plan on avoiding Seattle altogether. Let me first say, Seattle is, I guess you would consider it a mega region. I don't know, but it's a pretty big area, right? The Seattle area, Puget Sound, is pretty huge. I mean, if you're looking at the population, we're talking 4 million people, something like that. Now, we're not as big as, Chicagoland. We're not as big as the New York metro area, or as big as the Bay Area, or as big as, Houston and its big monstrosity. We're not like that. Or Phoenix and its massive metro area. We're not as big as those, right? But if you look at all of those cities, just because one issue is in a particular city, it has no reflection on the rest of the area, right? So if you, for example, Chicago, if you go to, God, I'm forgetting my Schaumburg, right? I used to like going to Schaumburg in Chicago. Um, the issues that go on in Chicago don't have any reflection on Schaumburg, or the north side of the city. And I can't think of some of the cities now. I'm forgetting them because I used to go to Chicago all the time. I'm forgetting them. There's because I'm getting Cleveland confused. Some of the cities there, because I can name off a lot of places up in suburbs of Cleveland, Palma, and different places like that. God, I can't even think. But anyway, let me pull it up to refresh my memory here. Hold on. Bear with me. Chicago is a big enough area where, okay, there's Naperville, Schaumburg, there's one of them, Evanston, Elk Grove. We knew someone that lived in Elk Grove, or was it Oak Park? I can't remember. One of the two, right? They're completely far away from each other. But that has nothing to do. The issues in Chicago have no reflection on some of these other places. Some of these other places are really nice, cool neighborhoods, right? And even in Chicago itself, there are many areas of Chicago all over, north and south, that are, and also west, that are really, really nice and really, really cool, and you never really come across much. There are things that may happen here and now, but it's not a constant problem, right? Same thing with Nashville, right? Nashville, there's plenty of places. There's Franklin, there's Goodlettsville, there's all these different places that are close to Nashville, right? Nashville, in the city, there are certain issues in certain sections of Nashville, but it has no bearing on all of Nashville. Nashville used to be rough, right? Like, I know Nashville. They used to call it Nash Vegas. I remember Nashville. It can get pretty rough, but that has no reflection on other parts of Nashville and other parts of the suburbs that surround Nashville, Tennessee. You can even throw Bowling Green, Kentucky in there as being a far-flung suburb, because a lot of people commute, believe it or not, 65 miles south. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. It's the darn neighborhood cat. Anyway, so when it comes to Seattle, the same is true, right? When you look at downtown Seattle and the areas, the problem areas of downtown Seattle, it has no reflection on the rest of downtown, right? There are other areas of downtown that are not necessarily an issue, right? Now, does the video make the city look really bad? Yes. Is Seattle in a more of a bad state than what it was when I left there 3.5 years ago? Yes. Yes, it is. Will the city recover? I believe it will. Now, are there other cities here in this area that you can go to and you don't even think that you're close to Seattle? Absolutely. And a good example of this is to the gentleman that asked this question, that he would want to avoid Seattle. I haven't been to Seattle in years. Maybe at least a year. I'll put it so I won't put a lie out there. At least a year, right? Year and a half for sure. And I don't have a need to go, right? We were going to use a supplier up there for our store, but their products aren't really what we're looking for, so we just didn't do it, We have a supplier down here that handles all of our store needs, and then we have other suppliers all across the country. So we do fine with those. But Noelle went up that time when she did that, right? And there's really not a need in a place like Tacoma. You don't really have a need to go up there unless you are working up there. There are other places, right, that you can go and live, and it's insanely amazing. I'm going to rattle off some places. Bremerton, nice. Bainbridge Island, nice. Pick a place, right? Port Orchard, nice. Gig Harbor, down here close to Tacoma, right? Nice. Let's see. Of course, we know about Bellevue and Redmond and Kirkland and all those. There was a guy that was asking about Renton the other day. That's nice, right? Those are nice places. If you want to go into some of the snow country, you have Snoqualmie and North Bend. Those are nice. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to see anything at all resembling what you saw in the video in those places. Not to say they don't have their issues, because they do. You know, you have Bonnie Lake. If you want to have a lot of wilderness around you, Bonnie Lake is a good example. Really, really nice. Not to say there's no issues there, but there are. You have here in Tacoma, you have Ruston, a really nice area. You have Browns Point. It's kind of hoity-toity, but you got Browns Point. Never would have to deal with any stuff like that. You have Fox Island. Now, if you got some cash, you know, the average price over there, I think, is hitting at $900,000. You definitely ain't gonna see nothing like what you saw in the video. Like, so you have that, right? There's tons of places. There's Graham. You know, Humanclaw. I can just keep naming them. There's tons and tons. DuPont. Right? There's dozens and dozens and dozens. And that's just from Seattle down. And Seattle to the east. Going up north, there's Everett. There's Marysville. You know what I mean? Like, Tulalip. I just named right now probably, I don't know, maybe a dozen places. Whidbey Island. Now, if you really like nature, that's a good place. Really nice up there. Right? There's tons of places. So what I'm trying to say is that there are some people who want you to believe, just like with Tacoma, and they want you to believe that all of Tacoma is just this scary place. And there are people who are born and raised here who will tell you, who've lived here their whole life, never moved, who will tell you that a lot of the people who say that, A, have only lived here for a little bit of time, or B, are just hearing stuff from what somebody has told them, or they lived here a long time ago. That's not to say there's not issues, but I can tell you, being here for just 3.5 years, I've yet to have any sort of issue or problem. Let me knock on some wood. Okay? Haven't. In Seattle, I lived in the Greenwood neighborhood, which was north of downtown. And it was close. It was right there on the border with Shoreline, right? Shoreline's another nice city to live in. Linwood. There's so many places, right? And these are places where if you get a job there, you don't have to ever go to Seattle. Seattle is similar to a lot of these other big cities. Seattle kind of makes the area, right? It stimulates the economy. It provides a whole lot of energy for the area, right? But you have many cities that they don't really depend on Seattle. And there's a lot of people who don't really necessarily directly depend on Seattle. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, even if Seattle turned into just this crap hole, these other places won't necessarily feel the same way or be the same way at all, right? But when you look at this video, it kind of makes it seem like, for some who are on the outside looking in, like this is just, whew. And you do have some people who, as soon as they see a homeless person, they want to run. You know what I mean? Like, they want to run. And there are some people where this is not a big deal. You know, I'm coming from out east. I've been to some places. My hometown was not like, you never saw any of that stuff, right? If I came from my hometown and directly came here, it'd be culture shock. And for some people who may have been here back in the olden days, when, if you saw the first real world, Seattle, the very first one, that is what people think of Seattle. That was kind of the vibe of Seattle. It's just this kind of, you know, cool, hippie, laid back place, kind of sleepy, and it's changed drastically. And one of the big things that has happened is recently, and I've said this before, the mayor that's there should not be the mayor, in my opinion, and not just based on some of the bad choices that have been made just in terms of police and other things, but just in general. There's been a lot of things that didn't make sense. The head tax, the holding up the streetcar system, and then, waiting. And obviously here construction costs goes up almost every single day, waiting for a long time because if she felt it was too expensive, then she says, okay, let's do it. And now it's much, much more expensive than what it is. And now they're not sure if they're going to be able to build it. It's stuff like that. It's like, get out of the way. Like, you're just in the way. Now, some people may not like that I said that, but it's like she's in the way. And there's a lot of folks that kind of feel that way. There's some people who definitely like her, and that's totally cool. But I just feel like she's just in the way, right? There are folks on the city council that are just in the way. You know what I mean? Like, just stop. There are some good things that were done, but there's other things. It's just like, really? And then down here in Tacoma, you have a lot of people fleeing to down here. Why? It's cheaper to live, but you don't have the headache. It's just cheaper. Taxes are cheaper, land is cheaper, houses are cheaper. It just is. And you don't have that. Here, it's a different system. Seattle, you have the mayor, and the mayor kind of runs everything. Down here, we don't have that type of government. We have a mayor, but she's basically like a city commissioner, really. We have a city manager, similar to Bowling Green, Kentucky. They have a city manager. And the city manager is the one that pretty much is controlling the purse. You know what I mean? That's basically kind of the situation. And so city manager has to make sure that not only are the council members are happy, but also that the citizens are happy. And like they're the one that's juggling between the two. And so they make the big bucks, not the mayor. But the city manager makes the big bucks. Right? So it's a completely different system than what you have up in Seattle. Now, does it make a difference? Yeah, it does make a big difference. There are times when the mayor form of government is much better, and there's times when the city manager form is much better. And this is one of those examples of where, yeah, thankfully we do have that type of system. But Tacoma could easily go into that same circumstance. I think one of the big issues in this area is definitely homelessness. It really and truly, and that's not, and when I say this area, I'm talking the Puget Sound region. So all the way Marysville south to Olympia. Homelessness is a big issue, but it also is a big issue on the West Coast. And what I mean by the West, or I should say the West, because even in Albuquerque, homelessness was huge. I had never been to a city where I saw a long line of people on a sidewalk sleeping on the sidewalk. I'd never seen that. I went 30-something years, never saw it. I would see homeless people every now and again, but I had never seen at night a whole line of people sleeping on the street. Never saw it. And then when I went to Denver, I saw the same thing. And I'm like, dang. You know what I mean? Like, I had never seen that. Right? And then once I've gotten to Seattle, I was already conditioned. I was like, well, this is just the West. This is how it is out West. Whereas where I'm from, you had homelessness, but it was kind of dispersed. Like, they were in different areas. They were, the whole, they're sleeping under the bridge type of thing. They were out of sight quite a bit. And we didn't have the sheer number. Here, it's just it's a huge volume. Even in smaller areas, there's a huge volume of homeless people, right? So there is definitely that's definitely cause for concern, and there's definitely things that need to be done about that. Um, but that's not it. I think that the video itself is highlighting certain areas, but it's neglecting other areas. And I said that before, that I think that there's certain parts of this that it's not really reflecting on. And that's what makes a lot of people who live in Seattle every day and love the city, that's what makes them angry, because it doesn't show you the other parts of the city. It doesn't show you all of the development and all the things that are going on and all of the technology that's going on and the importance of University of Washington. Even right now with the sickness, University of Washington played a big role in helping with coming up with all of the different testing and things like that and research. You would hear it on the news often, University of Washington. That's Seattle. So there's a lot of stuff, not only just that, but around the world, right? The University of Washington played a big part in a lot of different things, from even cook stoves in some of the developing world. They're trying to come up with cheap cook stoves for people who are burning charcoal and burning their lungs out. They've done so much different research in terms of sea life and all of that type of stuff, right? There are many, many good things that obviously this video's not talking about, but good stuff doesn't sell. Like if they pointed on all of the positive things that outnumber the bad in Seattle, it wouldn't be something that would people would watch, because there's tons of videos about that. There's a rich history in Seattle, some of it good, some of it not so good, but there's a rich history there. And so it highlights certain pieces, but it doesn't highlight the others. It doesn't talk about, yes, there are businesses that are closing, but there's a ton of businesses that are also opening. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of positive sides. Now, again, would I have my wife and kids walking around at 9 o'clock at night in certain areas of downtown by themselves? No. In downtown Seattle? No. I'm being honest. I wouldn't. Wouldn't feel comfortable. Would not feel comfortable. Would I put my store in the areas that they were talking about in downtown Seattle? No. Nope. Being honest, I wouldn't do it. Right? Likewise, there are certain areas of downtown Tacoma that I would scratch my head and say, I don't know if I want to put my store there. You know what I mean? There are very few. There's like one place I can think of that I'm like, nah. The rest, I'm like, cool. Not a problem. Maybe too expensive, may not be the right square footage, but there's only one place I can think of where I would be like, nah. But I would still choose that place any day of the week versus some of the places in Seattle, right? Downtown. So what I'm saying is there are people who are saying, I would never go to Seattle because this is scaring me. I would disagree with that, right? I would disagree with that. Again, for the most part, as long as you mind your own business, no matter where you are, you're typically okay. If you have a permanent establishment there in some of these areas, that's a little bit different. Seattle is definitely a city that has a lot more protests. So protests will happen there quite often. It happens a lot in Portland. And it's destructive sometimes. Sometimes it's destructive. So a lot of businesses are like, I just can't. I can't anymore, right? Here in Tacoma, we had protests and we did not have any of the destruction. We had at the mall, they put those big, huge trash cans, those big dumpster trash cans around the mall, certain entrances. And it was for nothing. Nothing happened. Downtown, there were people who boarded up some stuff, and there were some people who went through and were knocking out windows at maybe, I think, a few places, a couple of places. And people told them to stop it. And that was it. There was no mass destruction, and that stuff was replaced quick. It was not like that. And people were saying they're really proud. You would see it in some of the local chats. People were saying they were really proud of Tacoma, and it was great that people were able to protest, but not create a problem. And so it's just different, right? It's different. The culture in Seattle and the culture in Everett, the culture in Bellevue, the culture in Tacoma, they're all different. And so to the gentleman who said that he's, concerned about going to Seattle, I would say, nah, still go. Definitely go. It's not like you have to constantly look over your shoulder and be like, oh, it's not like that. You know what I mean? It's not at all like that. It's just funny that people think that way, but it's not like that at all, right? I would say definitely, obviously make sure that you're not, and this I would say to anyone, don't flash money around. That's not a good idea anywhere. I wouldn't be comfortable doing that. But you got to keep in mind, there are wealthy, wealthy, wealthy people who walk around the same areas that they showed on camera every single day. There are people who are movers and shakers of that city that walk around in those areas every single day. You know what I mean? And so it's not like what you think. But it should call, I think the intent of the video was to basically say, look, we have many different fires here, and we have leadership that's basically saying like, oh, what about this over here? What about that over there? Instead of looking right in front of them, there's all these different fires. There was someone who was saying, and their comment got deleted because it was just stupid because they didn't watch the whole video. That's the video I did. That's the other thing. If you're not going to watch the whole video, and I know I'm long-winded, if you're not going to watch the whole video, don't comment because it's just stupid. What he was saying that, typical, what type of solutions do you have then? And I said what I thought would be a good idea. I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone does. But in the video, that the documentary, they were talking about having hospitals that treated people who have substance abuse issues as well as mental health issues, and that should be an option that should be done. There should also be social workers who are there to help. I said that. Now, the person was probably asleep, or they probably, went off and their mama told them to get off the computer or something. But I did say that there needs to be a better way that things are done. They had a policy before where the police and social workers went and talked to some of these homeless encampments, and they were working with people who wanted to get out. There are people who are homeless who want help. The ones that don't want help is not the ones that they're focused on. They're focused on the ones that legitimately want help. And yet these social workers would have to go in there. Now the city council said they don't want the police there. I think that is the wrong thing to do. And I said, I think that they should have the police there because they are going to be the protection between someone who is there to help. Duh. Right? I think there's a lot of different things that should be done, but I do think that, yes, having these hospitals that can definitely help make individuals productive people is important. Some people, especially here, are just a paycheck away from being homeless. Not everyone that's homeless is having substance abuse issues, and this video says that. So to its credit, they're saying that not the stuff that you're seeing on the video are people who have issues. They're homeless, but they also have issues on top of that. And those issues are being somewhat not focused on by the city enough, or in certain areas, or the city is making, rules and laws that are making the problem worse. And I agree with that, right? Don't have all the answers. And I don't think that it's going to all come from here. I think that you have to see other places. They mentioned a program that happened in Rhode Island, I believe, that works. And I think that's what needs to be done. Other places have tried some things. It worked out. Pull a little bit from there. Pull a little bit from Tacoma. Tacoma has done a lot of different things in terms of helping homeless. We're still falling behind a little bit, but we've done better at it than Seattle. Then Everett. There's a company up there that makes all these different little shelters for homeless people, and they're really nice, affordable dwellings. There should be a collaborative effort that Seattle leadership should do. There's ways to help move it along rather than just kick it down the road and go the direction that they're going. But anyhow, I'm going to get off of here because I can keep talking forever and ever and ever. Make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.